Still. Can you hear me with the mic? All right, good. What do you think so far, Mark?
The title got me.
The title got you? All right.
And the speaker.
Well, of course, the speaker. Hi. I'll turn my mic. All right, I think the room has been populated enough. Kevin, it's good to see you. To get started, thank you all for coming. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Aaron Ansari. Ryan, it's good to see you. Thank you. The money that I gave you obviously made it to your BMW. Thank you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Aaron Ansari. I am the Regional Sales Director at PHISHME, but I'll actually be going into a decently extensive history of who I am and my roles here within Columbus at the various organizations around 270 as we go through this. But I'm also on the ISSA board for Central Ohio. So we put on this event, and any feedback that you have, good or bad, please use it within the app that you've all most likely downloaded. Last year we had paper sheets. This year we're giving you the facility to be able to respond to us immediately with instant feedback. It's not anonymous, or it might be anonymous. Either way, it's not on the Tor network, but either way, you can go ahead and give us that response. We appreciate it. We use that intelligence to build the program the next year. And hopefully you've seen a good change from last year to this year in the positive sense. So anything that you have or want to say, please feel free to do so. What we'll be going over today is something that I was talking to Mark a little bit before the session. I don't know if the audience or the community at large had an appetite for, so it's good to see some people filtering in and some people being here to consume this, the ones that I didn't pay. So those of you that I did pay, just keep it on the down low. We'll leave that for later. We'll go over my transition from technologist to salesman. I'll talk a little bit about what I've done, the various roles that I've had within the organizations around Columbus, some details about the roles, and then go into what it's like, at least from my perspective, on the sales side of an organization, or at least an organization that you would consider to be a vendor, right? So I would come to you soliciting your purchase order, your dollars, in order to take my software and utilize it. And I'll talk about building partnerships and that sort of stuff as we go over the presentation. Any questions or comments that you have, please, this is meant to be interactive. If you want to throw rocks, throw rocks. If you'd like to save them to the end, no problem. But please feel free to do so as we go through the presentation. So the dark side of information security, oftentimes, when I made the transition, a couple of guys are in the room from my last company, BMW Financial Services, and the jokes were, oh, you're going over to the dark side. You're kind of going over to the people that are the vendors, the people that typically most people in IS don't like to speak to. And truth be told, that's pretty much a universal, we'll say, perspective. People, when you say you're going over to a vendor, I had a customer that was at a university. He went over to a company called Duo Security, and sure enough, all the emails and the ribbing that he got was that he was going to the dark side. So I used that here, but I made certain not to use any Star Wars analogies because that's just too played, especially in this space. So anyone recognize where this guy is from? Come on. No Futurama fans in here? This is the robot devil from Futurama, but it might just get worse with some of the obscure references. I had a Princess Bride one earlier that thankfully somebody got. Engelbert, I might count on you for something here. Okay, so some context. Where am I coming from? Why can I stand up here and say that I was a quote-unquote technologist? My first, I guess, real organization outside, or actually during my time at university at Ohio State, was Battelle. I was an intern at Battelle. I worked in Building 7 and Building 11, and I worked on programming their linear referencing systems for some systems that they were updating for their US mapping system. It was called GIS at the time. I think it's still called Geographic Information Sciences. And I wrote VB little scripts and contents to update their linear reference files. From there, I moved on to a company that went belly up. Which was a good experience. There's a guy here in the room that was at the company with me. That's Rob there. DeYoung GIS was the name of the company. It was poorly ran, inefficient. The people that worked there were brilliant and just all great guys and girls. But a good experience to go through an organization that folds, or at least to learn what not to do. The point here, though, germane to what I'm talking about, is I continued that GIS sort of track, did some generic network help desk sort of stuff, everything from Excel help from project analysts to designing maps, database manipulation, that sort of stuff. After that, I consider this my first real job within the space. I went to Huntington National Banks. I was a programmer analyst. I was on the ATM plastics team. So if you're a Huntington customer, this was back in the day. I'm not going to date myself with age. You can tell by my hairline that I'm not a spring chicken. But when it was new for you to get a phone call based on spending activity outside of your spending pattern, like your credit card, you go out and you bought a TV, and that's not normally your spending pattern. You got a phone call from your credit card company. That's what I wrote at Huntington. It was called the anti-fraud software, but that's what I wrote there. And I spent a couple of years developing that system, getting it up and running, and then eventually passing it on to an operations group to get it up and going. But that was both on the mainframe, so I had a COBOL set of jobs, JCL, batch control jobs there, as well as some VB stuff. Went on to Cardinal Health. This is where I continued my work into security. Was an information protection person, NCASE, litigation support, and Cisco IDS 4200 installations at Cardinal's various facilities all over North America was my territory. Did a stint at JP Morgan, information risk manager for the retail financial services group. We had $32 billion in deposits on our platform. I did the RACF audits. I did the tabletop exercises. You hear tabletop exercises coming up a lot these past few days, right? Well, JP Morgan was doing them back when I was there, back when you used rocks as cards. So it was fascinating that JP Morgan could be ahead of the game, especially with their Phoenix application, but they were. And those of you that are from Morgan know Phoenix, right? I lived and breathed that every day. And then from there, I went on to BMW Financial Services to be a security architect there on the .NET framework, worked with business and the IS departments to ensure that their projects were compliant with various requirements, that the security of the code that was in the repository as well as the codes that was checked in for each release was compliant. So I would say, based on my, we'll call it pedigree, that I'm well positioned in order to call myself at least a general technologist. Over that time, while I was there at the various companies, when I was at Cardinal Health, I was offered a position at Cisco to do, literally, to send me out to lots of places and do installations of Cisco's IDS implementations. I was also offered a position at ACI. This one might not be an organization that you're familiar with. They're out of Omaha, Nebraska, the Silicon Valley of the Midwest, and they do a lot of back-end ATM and payment systems. Sometimes if you look on the back of your credit card, you might see ACI listed there. Pulse and Star networks, they run off of ACI code. KPMG, after I got Archer certified, this was while I was at BMW, I got my Archer certification, and as soon as you put that on LinkedIn, the phone calls and the emails start coming saying, hey, we need an Archer consultant for a 2-month gig in Alaska for, guaranteed to keep you working for 80 days. But beyond that, a couple of serious and legitimate requests came in for me to work for KPMG. And then my current organization, and this is the one that hooked me, PHISHME. All right, you got it, good. This is the one that hooked me, and this is, come on, guy, that was good. Yeah, all right, good. And that's PHISHME. So what I'm going to get into is why, specifically, out of the offers that you saw there at the various organizations, why this one in particular hooked me, and what it means to be in the sales portion of an organization that's fledgling or starting out. So I talked to a couple of people in the space. Any of you guys recognize or know Kevin Flanagan? Good, show of hands. It's always nice to have people raise hands just because it keeps you awake and your head's from nodding. So I'll ask you to raise your hands every so often. I talked to Kevin Flanagan specifically because Kevin actually made the same transition that I did. I spoke to a couple other people. Dave Garcia, Sasan had some great quotes that I'm going to use in today's presentation. But Kevin actually brought up a good point. And he said, as a hiring manager, and I won't read this all to you, But basically, he likes to hire people that have context. And when he's bringing someone on to RSA or bringing someone on to the organization that he's at, it pays, literally, dollars to have someone that has context. Why? Because he doesn't have to pay to train them. He doesn't have to pay to bring them up to speed. They can instantly plug into any environment that he needs them to go into. And more specifically, literally, it helps give credibility to the person when he puts them out in a company's contract or on a job that needs done. So looking at things and kind of framing this conversation with that in mind, it actually makes sense. It's actually the reason that it helped with PHISHME for me to go over, because I had just worked on evaluating PHISHME at BMW and deploying it out to the financial services space there. So kind of keeping that in context, being a practitioner, living in the information security space, deploying the software out, obviously that experience already there. And when I come and I talk to an Andrew Engelbert and I say, hey, Andrew, you need to buy PHISHME, I can say, because when I did it, all of a sudden now I have a little bit more credibility and a little bit more of a leg to stand on. A little caveat here, though. I got to quit Dropbox. Apologies. I should have done that before I started my presentation. You have to make certain that you are able to work for the vendor that you might be considering going to. If you're in here and thinking about jumping ship, make sure that you check contracts. I know at PHISHME, our contracts that we execute with our customers state that we can't poach their employees. So just keep in mind any terms and conditions or clauses that you might have at your current vendor if you're thinking about jumping ship. Okay, what to expect? This is an analogy of drinking from a fire hose. That's probably true at any job that you go to, especially if you're going to, from a role where you're very project-based, where you're very, I will say qualitative in what you do. When you get your annual review, it's not often quantifiable to say, hey, you achieved X and your goal was Y, so your rating is Z. Your review might more be, you were supposed to get these projects done this year, and you were supposed to do this, and yeah, I think you did a good job here. I think you could have improved there, and you get a 4 out of 5, or a 3 out of 5, or a 6 out of 10, whatever it is. In the sales organization, things are much, much more quantitative. It's dollars and cents. So, you could go home thinking, after a week's worth of work, I don't know if I did a good job this week or not. Or maybe I did do a good job this week. But it's hard to be able to quantify, well, what does doing a good job mean? In a sales organization, it's very easy to quantify what doing a good job means, because there are certain expectations of you. And if you met those expectations from a dollar standpoint, you did a good job. Or you did what was acceptable. If you exceeded them, okay, you did a great job. If you blew them out of the water, great, you did a fantastic job. If you didn't meet them, you get the idea. But let's talk a little bit about the roles specifically. So one of the things in my conversations with the various people that I was talking to were to talk about the differences in just what going over the dark side actually means. And you see 3 kind of things here, all with the same sort of theme. The first one would be the account manager or the account director. This is the role that I'm in today. This is someone that's responsible for driving the sales at an organization. You are responsible for a specific quota. You have to meet that quota or exceed that quota every quarter. And this is something that, again, goes back to quantifiability, but also is something that adds an amount of pressure. In your roles, typically, in my roles as a technologist, I could come to work, and we kind of use this tongue-in-cheek, but I could come to work and not do anything for a few days, and no one would really notice, right? Like, I could be at my desk, and I could bury my head. Now, I didn't do this, and legitimately, I didn't do this. But your organization might be so evolved that you could literally just come into work and check out and not do anything for a few days, and no one would really notice. And it might be a week or a few hours, whatever it is at your organization. That's not the case in this role. Specifically, when you're at a vendor, when you're in a sales role, your activities are logged, everything that you're doing, not from a big brother perspective, but you need to be able to know what you're doing because you're not just doing a one-on-one relationship. Perhaps you're at an organization now, you have many projects that you're working on. Maybe you've got 3 major projects and a couple of minor ones. Here, as an account representative, I have 56 active accounts that I work on right now with 18 potentials, meaning ones that are in various stages of a sales cycle, going from a warm or a hot sort of interest to being in procurement. And there are all sorts of activities that I have to manage. I have to manage contract negotiations. I have to be the intersection between legal and procurement. So my legal, their legal, my procurement, their procurement. I have to know, what is happening from a implementation perspective. So I have to lead a team that understands, okay, where are you in this project and that project? With 18 people, or with 18 different organizations, all with different needs and different sizes, all of whom think that they're the most important thing to you, which they are, right? I mean, it's good to develop that partnership and relationship, but everyone thinks that they're most important. From the 250-person shop to the 250,000-person shop, each person requires your attention. So you really can't get away with, kind of not doing anything, which also speaks to the work-life balance thing that I'll talk about in a little bit. So as an account manager, you are responsible for the soup to nuts of what happens from a pre- or post-sales standpoint at an organization. That delineation is also very important to know, because pre-sales, I get you to signing a contract, and now you're officially a customer. Sometimes, and you might have this, the salesman walks away, and you don't see them again until renewal time. Other times, like in my organization, I'm both active in a pre- and post-sale sales cycle. So after the sale, I don't walk away. I'm still involved with my customers. I'm still involved with their projects and programs. Pocket protector, if you can't tell, this is the sales engineer role. So sales engineering, this is a hybrid between technologist and sales. These are the people that, from a technology standpoint, are the ones that you leverage in order to get a product implemented. Think back to various softwares that you have installed, hardwares that you've put in. If the account manager isn't able to answer the question, who do they first go to? They go to the sales engineer. Typically, like the quote from Kevin said, the sales engineer has experience in implementation. And it's good to leverage these sort of people. Another thing I want you guys to think about is your current engagements that you have now with various vendors and the roles that you have here. Leverage your sales engineers to be able to help you for more than just the technology install of your X product. Talk to them about others in your industry, peers in your space, competitors, those sorts of organizations that are similar to yours. Maybe you're in insurance, maybe you're in power, maybe you're in financial. What are the other financial, power, insurance agencies done, and how do their implementations look? Leverage those technology best practices and nuggets, because that can help you from your implementation and even beyond at your data center. So the sales engineers, a great option, and actually one of the positions that was offered to me in those various ones was a sales engineering position. I wanted more of an account management one because I'm a little bit more of a personable person. Sales engineering is a great option because if you don't want to have that face-to-face customer, kind of on-stage presence, because you can do the work behind the scenes and only come out, as needed for implementations. But it's up to you on, how much engagement you want to have. And then there's this. This one is professional services. So this is a great option for people that don't want to have a commission or quota-based job or role, but still want to be able to do the programs and the technical things that they do today. My professional services team is actually made up of former PHISHME customers that were all legally taken. Someone retired, someone quit, went to a different organization. I didn't violate any contracts. But the point is, let's say you're implementing a project, a firewall project, a secure code repository project, and you're installing Archer or Ounce Ounce, sorry. Archer would be GSA, but GRC. But so let's say you're installing IBM's Watchfire Ounce product suite, and you're doing this at your organization, and you like, all the aspects of working with your network team, working with your help desk, working with your procurement team on getting all this done. Well, wouldn't it be neat if you could just do that for your job? That's all you did. You didn't have to go on to the next project and the role-based access control project that you don't want to work on. No, you can just do what you love every single day times N customers as much as you want and literally just stamp it out from vendor to vendor, from customer to customer. That's what professional services is. These are salary-based, not commission-based positions. So you're back to that same level of quantifiability or qualifiability in your successes. It's a little bit more quantifiable because you can say, I did X implementations at X customer places. But professional services is a great option if you're looking to get into, you really like to do one thing and you want to do that one thing over and over again. So some terminology, some things that you'll need to pay attention to. NAM, TAM, ABC accounts, SMB. You know, acronyms rule our industry. I think they rule every industry from a technology, finance, whatever it is. But things you might have to get used to, named account manager, technical account manager, small or medium business. I think ABC accounts kind of makes sense. But named account managers could be people that live in any region of the country or world and cover only the premier, like your Fortune 10, your Fortune 20, your Fortune 100 customers. So I live in Columbus, Ohio, but I service you know, a startup in San Francisco, a retailer down in Arkansas, and a large bank in New York. Those are my named accounts. And these are the people that you'll work with literally over the course of your career. You won't typically get new ones, and you'll manage the business and the relationship between these named accounts and yourself. Technical account or territory account manager would kind of be like me. I cover a certain region in Ohio, Kentucky, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, part of Pennsylvania. Jim, are you in here from West Virginia? West Virginia, you me, buddy. You'll be my one. That would be a typical geographic area or region where you cover the relationships there. Small and medium business, this changes from organization. Dell SecureWorks thinks anyone under 5,000 users is a small business. Anyone under 15,000 or 20,000 is a medium, and then above that is a large business. But to PHISHME, you know, those numbers change. It might be 200, 1,000, and so on and so forth. So that number changes. It depends on how the partner categorizes you. But what you should take away from that is the various incentives or packages that might be offered for the tiers that you're in. If you're in a larger tier, you might have more incentives. If you're in a smaller one, there might be a special pricing package that's available for you. So what not to expect? Don't expect to be on the golf course. You know, there was this joke that you go out and golf and this sort of thing. I'm terrible at golf to begin with. And apparently my kids inherited because we went mini golfing this last week. It was not pretty. But don't expect to be whining and dining people on golf courses. It's not like it is in television. How many technologists do you know that really like to golf anyway? There's 3 in the room. Ryan, you can raise your hand. 4, right? So it's not many. It is a minority. It's few and far between that you would have the budget to actually go out and pay the greens fee and all that's associated with the golfing that's associated there. Don't expect to be whining, dining people. You can go out to dinners, once your company gets big enough or once you have a specific budget, but it's not all, champagne and caviar every time you go out, and you're not, whining and dining your guests or your customers everywhere you go. And don't expect to have a lot of free time. I talked last week about my kids and golfing. It's actually kind of hard to do vacations, especially if you're taking vacations at the tail end of a quarter, which we're just coming up to quarter end. So if you're getting phone calls from your vendors about, hey, are you going to be doing this, or am I going to be getting that? What's the status of that contract? I am not a leg humper. I don't encourage you to engage with leg humpers, but you all know who the leg humpers are, right? So, and I call them leg humpers, and they are leg humpers, and I coach my people not to be in this role. But you don't have a lot of free time. You can't. If someone's expecting you to get something implemented from a business perspective, especially if you're, PHISHME isn't necessarily a critical app, right? But if you're installing, an IDS, if you're installing something that is very much mission critical, these organizations are counting on you to be available when they need you. And that includes during the contract negotiations, and that includes during the program implementations, because these people might be itching to get this in. And the only holdup is the contract. And the only holdup, and they don't know, think about it, when you submit something to procurement, do you necessarily know what happens? I mean, it's this black box, and you get something out of it. But to you, it looks like I'm the holdup, right? So it's like, what's the status of the contract? Where are we? Where's it at? So don't expect to have a lot of free time. This is a speedometer. I'm a car guy, and I like car analogies, and working at BMW was wonderful for that, beyond all the other benefits that were there. But I did this because I wanted to speak more to that quantifiability. A lot of what you do is measured via the dollars and cents that you're driving at the organization. And your success and failure depends on what you're pulling in. And to that point, when I went over to PHISHME, I took a very, very big loss in guaranteed income, meaning a base salary was pretty much halved, if not a little more. That was guaranteed to be my income, meaning if I didn't perform any sales over the course of the next year, I was guaranteed X dollars. And if you can't live with something like that, or if you can't accept that risk, that's very much something that you have to learn or understand before you make that jump. I would encourage you, though, they did it right at PHISHME. We do it right. When a new person comes on, we don't give them a full quota. We balloon them up. So they start off with a very small quota because they're territory building, they're building leads, and then we balloon them up to a large and then eventually a full quota that a normal person, or a full share person would have to driving that revenue number. The other thing about this is that, and I'll talk to this when I speak to commissions, but meeting your quota is simply just doing the average. So if you have a 1 to 10 rating, and 5 is the average of what you're expected to get, let's say you're responsible for $200,000 in quota, and you get $204,000. That's the average. You're actually expected to perform beyond that. At every organization with whom I've spoken, every person has to actually exceed their quota. So even just meeting the minimum, if you just assume, all right, I'm responsible for $100,000 a month, 1.2 million a year, even just meeting that minimum you're actually expected to do more at any vendor that you work with. You ask them that's the case. So any questions, by the way? You guys are making this easy. I'm glad to see the back of the room filled out, though. If you're in the front, take a look in the back. See what kind of crowd I draw? Mark? Huh? So your tools. What do you have to be able to help or assist you with the the daunting task of being able to meet X dollars? So customer CRM, what does it stand for? Customer Relationship Management Software. Salesforce is just what I call it, because that's what we use. And that's what most people use. I think Microsoft Dynamics, Rob, is it Microsoft Dynamics? Microsoft has a competitive product. But this is kind of, remember how I said your transactions are logged and the things that you're doing? There's integrations for Outlook. There's integrations for your mobile phone. Everything that you're doing from a repository standpoint, someone comes up to you and you'd be like, hey, yeah, I talked to so-and-so over at whatever bank. I'm like, whatever bank, right? That was, Bob Smith at, There are certain tools that are available to you in order to help you keep the 100-some-odd customers or 86-some-odd customers that you have straight. And you should leverage them. Being a technologist, you should leverage the technology that you're given so that you're able to go through and service your customers as needed. Great platforms available. It's helpful if your organization has a good sales operations department that you're going to. So inquire about, are you a Salesforce platform? What kind of reporting do you do? What are your metrics? How do you log phone calls and that sort of thing? I might be here and get a phone call from someone. Well, how is that logged in Salesforce? And how does my management know that I've been talking to or touching that account? And then there's just all sorts of various other neat apps, widgets, and technologies that are available from a software and even a hardware perspective. Mobile devices, the technologies that live on them is fantastic. I will say Salesforce for Outlook if you're using Outlook as your email client, is the most time-saving tool that I've ever seen. It's free. It's available if you're a Salesforce customer. And it logs all your emails automatically by contact. So if I send an email to Andrew Engelbert, it knows that Andrew Engelbert is tied to this opportunity and weaves all that in automatically. So let's talk about compensation. Sometimes you might see something that says OTE. That means on-target earning. That means what you're expected to make based off the commission that I've assigned to you. So again, I assigned you a $100,000 a month commission. You get paid 2, 3, 4, 5% of that. Your on-target earning for the year is going to be $180,000 if you make all your goals. So when you're doing negotiations or you're talking to someone, figure out, okay, what's my OTE? What's my on-target earning? If I made the minimum, the expected requirement, what am I expected to make on commission and salary? Quotas, I think we've talked a little bit about that. Accountability, that's important because, like I said, it's tied specifically to quota simply because you are the one that's responsible. Can you take the stress and the pressure of needing to make certain that you make that number? And if you don't make it quarter after quarter, you won't be working at the organization anymore. So it's very much an easy black and white, am I going to sink or am I going to swim sort of thing. And you can use compensation and kind of some other stuff to create that. Just a little note, a little nugget for you guys with your procurement people. There's this thing called GSA. It's the government schedule. What's the A stand for? Mark, do you know? I don't remember. Anyway, the government has this thing where if you're doing contracts or negotiations with them, you have to give them your pricing. A lot of the people that I speak with think that I make my pricing up. There are really complex actuarial calculations that go into what my competition price is, what I price, what the market can bear, what I need to amortize over the course of the year from a book, from a value of an account and its loss. There's a lot that goes into pricing, and it's not something that salespeople just pull out of the air and say, oh, it's going to be this, and all of a sudden you get, oh, I can give you a discount and this sort of thing. When you're dealing with someone, ask if they're on the GSA. Because if they are, then you're going to know their price schedule and you know they have a certain set of prices. Sometimes people ask me, can I get GSA pricing? It's very, very few and far between. I can count on one hand in the 4 years that someone really got down to that level. But pricing is actually pretty fixed. It's not something that's random at your vendors. OK, so the sales process. You guys all today are leads. Yay, congrats. You're all leads. You're all various types of leads, but you're leads. This is an event. There are people and there are vendors that are in that room. And you go by and you drop your card, or you go by and you give them information, and you are a potential lead. Right now, you're a cold lead. If I'm having a serious discussion with you, maybe I talked with you once or twice, 3 times, you had a phone call, there was a demo, you might move up to what's called a hot lead. And as you go through this various sales process, your leads kind of fall off the wayside. They get trimmed off. Because not all the people that are interested will turn into something that's going to trial or turn into something that's piloting the solution. Not all the people that go to the pilot will go into actually having a formal proposal and doing a proof of concept. Not all the people that are in proposal will become a new customer. It's just the name of the game. Typically, most organizations expect from this standpoint down to here that it's about a 30% retention rate. So if you had 100 people that were hot leads, you'd have 30 at the end of the quarter of the year, whatever your time period is, that turn into your new customers. Pretty simple. And congratulations on all being cold leads. Hopefully some of you get warm. But the other thing that you have to pay attention to is the difference between new business and renewal. Because, it's not just one thing to get a new customer. It's another thing that says renewal down there. Sorry about the image. It's another thing to keep that customer. You want to form long-term relationships and partnerships. You want to be valued. And renewal income is commissioned differently than new business income. And there's complex formulas on how to figure all that out. But as an account manager, even a sales engineer, you want to be responsible to ensure that you are both driving new business and keeping renewal high. Investors, if you're a publicly traded company, if you're looking to get acquired, they look at this. They call this churn. They want to make certain that you're not just acquiring new customers and that you're just burning them off year after year. OK, so a little bit more on commission. Commissions can be a couple of ways. They can be monthly, meaning you get a percentage of what you made that month every month. They can be quarterly, or they can be what's called an annual draw. You can draw as much as you're expected to on your commission over the course of the year. And if you make more, great. If you don't, then you owe the company money at the end of the year. That's a really weird model, but they seem to do it a lot in California. A lot of the people that I speak to, well, it's California, right? But still. This impacts directly your taxes and your financial planning. Because if your standard of living was, I'm used to making $100,000 a year, and that gives me this many dollars a month, now your set income is changed, but your commission might change that. It also puts you in a different tax bracket, depending on what you get. And if you're doing quarterly commissions, you really only get 3 quarterly commissions a year for tax purposes, because that 4th one comes after January 1st, which goes into the next year. So you have to make certain that you're understanding the implication from a income status that you are planning and know well what to do and how to budget your funds. So the company that you're going to, odds are you're going to have a specific territory. Find out what that territory is, what you cover, and specifically what your role is. Remember I talked a little bit about the pre-sales and the post-sales standpoint. Are you someone that's going to be coming in after the sale? Are you someone that's going to be doing the work before the sale? What's the expectation on you during the life cycle of that customer? Qualys has a great model of pre-sales and post-sales. 12 months after the contract date, the post-sales teams comes in, and any new business that's generated from that gets to the post-sales team rather than the pre-sales technical account or territory account manager that dealt with that. So something to take into consideration and make certain you understand. Also, when you're sitting there and dealing with your vendors, and you get Mark to get Kaspersky, and he comes in and gives you Kaspersky, is he going to be the same person that's going to be helping you before the sale as well as after the sale? Make certain you get the post-sale team information so that you can work with them and form the partnership that they know you before you get to that, whatever the cutoff date is, and all of a sudden it's radio silence from your sales guy because they don't care about you. Also expect to travel. Travel is a mixed bag. You like travel until you don't like travel. That's just the pretty much only way to say it. It's great because you get points, and I can fly out to Disney races with George for free, and we can get hotels and airplane tickets and all that, all on points, and my kids can go to vacation in Arizona. But I paid for those points effectively. They're not really free. I was away for this event. I was away for that. I had to travel for this. I had to go over the course of a week for that. And it's kind of up to you. It goes back to your territory discussion. Are you really going to be traveling to exotic locations, or are you going to be in North Dakota for a week? Are you going to be stuck in Alaska, which in the winter, not in the summer when it's nice? Things to understand and things to get. Mark, you came out from Boston, and before that you were in Portland, Oregon. Right. So Mark's in the account management or marketing role at Kaspersky, and boom, boom, now he's in sexy Columbus, Ohio, which you got to say is a great place to be. So understand the travel and the expectance placed on you about travel. With your organization, get a feel of your leadership. This is true of any job that you're getting at, sales or not. But is your leadership one that like I said, kind of throws you into it, feeds you from the fire hose and says, where's your numbers? Or is your leadership one that grows and cultures you, kind of incubates you, and helps you grow into that position? One of the reasons that I went with PHISHME was because of the leadership and the people that I knew from the highest level to my immediate manager. The relationship that I had with them was one where I could see where it would be cultivated. And of course, that's true of any leader that you have. So with that being said, make certain that your organization and your leadership is ethical. You don't want things that are done just in spite of the customer. What's it worth me for 2-3 extra points on a deal if my customer is going to hate me after it? Then I don't get that renewal business, and I'm not seen as a strategic partner as part of that organization. So if you're talking to someone and they talk about, yeah, but we can do some creative stuff here, and we can do that, and we can make it happen this way, take some caution there. And if you're dealing with someone from a vendor perspective that does things that way, and you don't have that feel with them, make certain that you kind of walk away from that engagement. And then a word on competition. You're expected to have competition. Competition is not a bad thing. We're in the March tournament. What would it be like if Ohio State didn't have a team to play against on the field? Pretty boring Saturday, right? You're expected to perform. Competition helps drive pricing. Competition helps drive your performance. It keeps you from being static. And competition is, quite frankly, almost an intelligence feed. Because your competition could come out with something or be talking about something that you hadn't thought about. You couldn't see the forest from the trees. And it's a great way from your perspective to compare vendors. I don't mudsling. I welcome you to look at competitors in my space. Most of them have proof of concepts and pilots and trials. go ahead and do it and see what you think. When you're talking to someone and all they do is mudsling against the other guy, goes back to that, right? Do you really want to engage with that person? You want to be, I joked with my leadership, I wanted to call my title customer advocate, because effectively that's what you're doing. You're advocating for your customer to your organization on their needs, because you're the go-between. You're the go-between between the development path. You're the go-between between the enhancements or the opportunities that need to come in the product. And that's really how you should view yourself and your role at the company. OK. General age in this room seems to probably understand. Do you know what the movie this is from? Glengarry Glen Ross. And this is the famous speech that Alec Baldwin came in and said he's from corporate and F you, and he makes this much money and his watch costs more than your house, and that sort of thing. I'm hitting on this a lot because I run into people that are like this. And my hope is that you don't partner with them. I'm not saying that they're in my competition. I'm not saying that they're in this room or in this vendor hall. But when you're talking to someone and you just don't have that right feeling with them, and you think that they're only out to get that purchase order or only out to get that dollar from you, walk away. There's bound to be someone else in the pool or in the player space that will fit with your needs and with your culture. So George just left the room, but does anyone know what the statue is called? Don't look at the bottom. No one knows what the statue is called? This is the partner. Yeah, who said it? Yes, nice. This is the partner statue. This is at Disneyland. You can tell because that's Sleeping Beauty Castle in the background. Anyone wants to talk about Disney, by the way? You come talk to me. But this is the partner statue. And the point that I make behind this, and I've said it a few times if you're playing shots or bingo, partnerships, right? You want to form strategic partnerships with your vendors and with your technology partners because they're the ones that are going to help you. And when you form those partnerships with them, it's really beneficial for you and it's really beneficial for them. This is where I'm going to use the quote from Sasan. Sasan, actually, I'll ask you the question. The question that you dealt with was when to outsource or when to insource, right? And what was your answer?
I don't remember.
Oh, come on.
I said there was a crossover point when the person or the service knows little about your organization but knows a lot about their area, and you know a lot about your organization but very little about their area.
Right, so expertise, right? You're an expert in your area, but you might not be a great firewall, or you might not be a great perimeter defense person, or you might not be a great phishing awareness training sort of thing. You might think you are, but you're probably not. And that was a great answer, Sasan, simply because when you need a partner, when you need someone that has that expertise, bring them in, but truly make them a partner. Don't ride them till you can whip them till they're dead. Use them as a strategic partner and someone that can build that with you. So I think this is my last bit, and this is how to stay relevant. When you're going through and doing this, sometimes there's a little bit of a brain drain. I can't really remember the modules that are called from an encryption library in the .NET 4 or 5 framework to do encryption of a string. Yeesh, right? So what does that mean? Well, that means there's a little bit of knowledge loss when you go into a non-technical role. If you're not doing the professional services sort of thing, if you're in the sales engineer or the engineering role. So how can you at least stay a bit relevant? Well, I actually encourage you to volunteer. OWASP, or get involved in projects. Here within Columbus, we have a great OWASP chapter, many projects that are worked on. They had some tracks yesterday that were here. Great to get involved with. Your local ISSA, we have meetings every month. You're welcome to come. They're very low capital, decent investment for the return that you get on the meetings that you have, and you get to stay relevant and current with the information. And then your local nonprofits. Odds are there's something that you or your spouse is passionate about. Maybe you love cats and you want to adopt cats or spay and neuter cats. Well, your local cat place probably needs help with their computers. And you're a technologist. Give some of your time back to the community and help that local nonprofit with their servers, with their email. It might just be, George, you missed the partner statue. Like it was literally, look at that right there. Get involved with that local nonprofit and be a partner with them so that you can stay at least current on the needs or what's happening within a business space. And that's it. Questions, comments, observations? Yes. Larry.
What's the biggest change you've seen as you've moved side of InfoSec over to the dark side?
What's the biggest change?
What was the biggest mindset change that you had to go through?
Oh, okay. So the biggest mindset change that I would have to have is kind of, and I don't mean to be redundant, but building myself as a partner to my companies rather than kind of, when I was on this side, I didn't necessarily have a purchasing authority at BMW. And every time I got a vendor call or, hey, we're Rapid7 and we won't make this quarter without you sort of thing, leg humpers. I would just be like, whatever. I'm not even going to deal with these people. Like, it was just something that I would send a voicemail or just not answer the emails. Now being on this side, I'm the one sending the emails and I'm the one making the phone calls, right? So in order to get your time and in order to build that partnership, I really have to work on showing you the value of why I deserve your time and not someone that you should just hang up on or forward straight to voicemail. Because everyone can do it. I mean, you can ignore that.
Quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Do you think you'd ever consider going back, or have you decided this is your?
That's a great question, and one my wife asks me specifically. I would. I am kind of a passionate technologist at heart, and I do a lot of the volunteering and stuff that you see here at all these organizations. So I would, at the right opportunity for the right organization. I absolutely would.
Give you a call,
I'm on LinkedIn. Other questions, comments? Mark.
What would be the one thing that you brought with you from the good side to the dark side that you think's made you so successful on the dark side?
It would be the experience. So that quote, I can't go forward anymore, but that quote from Kevin of that foundation base that I had building up in the years that I spent at the various roles, it's so helpful to be able to talk the same language to financial services, to insurance, to energy, because without it, it just doesn't give credibility.
Would you do it again?
Would I make the jump again? I would, for the right organization. I've had actually plenty of job offers while I've been at PHISHME for large technology companies out of California, and I've chose to stay with PHISHME because I saw some activities at those various companies that I didn't appreciate. But I would actually encourage you to try it just because it's the other side of the coin. And I'm not telling you to leave your job. Don't go back to your boss and be like, at ISSA, I learned about leaving my job. It's only $96. But it's very enlightening just to see, because I interact with a lot of different organizations and a lot of different companies, and I see the same problems. So one of the things that I do is I try to get them together and collaborating, because then all of a sudden now they're talking and able to grow out of the exchange of data.
You alluded to the work-life balance.
Ah.
How do you deal with not being able to spend as much time with your children?
Sure. You do have to find a definite unplug point. Sometimes it doesn't align with quarters, like when your kid's spring break is the third week of March. There's nothing you can do, right? So what I did to try to mitigate that was just only work at night, right? Basically, and be in a different time zone. Everyone's in bed, now I'm going to have to go through and work and do that. But it is something that you have to compartmentalize. At my house, I work from home. I actually created an office with a door, and I close it, and I don't go back, from Friday to Monday. I have a phone, but just like you, it's quick little iterative stuff on the weekends. You really have to do a good job of compartmentalizing and segmenting your different roles in your life as best you can. I mean, today you might have, you might be on call or support, and how do you segment that? You gotta answer the call when it comes in. It's the same mentality, it's just a little bit different application. Sasan.
Just want to volunteer. You don't have to answer my call if you're on vacation with your kids.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Ryan, you guys have been just quiet back there eating all this up. You good? All right. Thank you very much, everyone.